Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dan Griffith with Essential Education. I want to welcome you to this recorded version of a quick overview of our programs and services that will be appropriate in corrections education situations. As you can see, you're looking at our website right now, and so I'm just going to take you through a few things here that would be important to you, and then we'll go live into our program, do a quick overview, let you see some of the tools and pieces that are most beneficial in corrections education. And then if you'd like more information or you'd like us to set up a specific demo with you or your site, you can always contact me, Dan at essentialed.com, and we'll get you to the correct sales rep and give you the opportunity to look at our programs more in depth. So as you see from our website here, we have a couple of areas that are appropriate in corrections education. First of all, in our Adult Basic Education series, we have workbooks, our ABE Essentials workbooks, which have an offline version, meaning that the virtual tutor that is connected with them is not enabled. We have the TABE 11-12 Academy offline version and CASAS Goals Academy offline version. Those programs start at a second grade level and go through upper level high school content. We know that a number of you are switching to an online format, and so if that's the case in your institution, of course, any of those are available in an online format as well. Under high school equivalency, we also have our GED Academy Offline, HiSET Academy Offline, and Task Academy Offline. And so we can connect you with content really from a second grade in the ABE courses all the way up through high school equivalency in our Academy offline versions, and either offline or online versions for you, depending on how your site is configured. Also, I direct you to our professional development tab on our website. There's some great tools for educators there, courses that you can take, and we'll look at a couple of those in a minute. Lots of our Tuesdays with Essential Education webinars that are archived and available for you at any time. So to get to our website, you just go to essentialed.com/educators, and it'll bring you up here, and you can review all these programs, click on any of those links, pages and information about all of it. But it's a good place to get started if you're looking at some of the materials that we offer. Now, two things that we offer under professional development I want to focus on. One is our Msg Measurable Skill Gains Accelerators. We just launched this series. It's a series of workbooks or handbooks, I guess you would say, that are designed to help you plot the course to measurable skill gains. So we have 3 distinct books for TABE, a TABE 11-12 Reading, TABE 11-12 Math, and TABE 11-12 Writing, and 2 for CASAS Goals. So depending on which state you're in and which of these assessments you use, the Msg Handbooks are designed to help you determine exactly what content you need to teach and how much time it's going to take you to move through the content to get a student from one measurable or from one EFL level to the next. So these are planning and pacing guides that we've made entirely free to you. You come in and you choose which ones you want. Put in your information down here and then choose which ones you want, and we email you the PDFs of those books. So highly encourage you to take some time to do this. It's a tool that educators across the country were asking us for, and we created to give you some support and help you find that pacing that you need and really the order of instruction that needs to happen to help students move from one EFL level to the next. The other thing that we offer is a distance learning series. Now, I know many of you are struggling or transitioning to different types of teaching in corrections with the COVID lockdowns and other things that have occurred. And I know that many times you're not in a full virtual setting with students, but there are many things that you're having to do that have changed from just a normal face-to-face class. And so we've created these 6 courses to help people understand how to use technology to most impact their students when they can't be right face-to-face with them in a normal classroom. And so there's 6 courses. The first one is really around what technology you need. That may or may not be relevant to you depending on the situation that you're in corrections. The records management and communication really is about how you should organize things so that you can deal with this new gap that exists between you and your students. And so I think that's really beneficial. These are typically between 15 and 35-minute webinars and pack a lot of information in. The 200 level courses, 201 is a teacher's view of distance learning. And we actually have a teacher out of Virginia who has been using our programs, our GED Academy specifically, to teach from a distance. And so she gives her experience. It's not scripted by us. It's how she uses the program to maximize teaching and help students progress. And I think it's a great view for you, especially if you're looking at how to use our program or if you want to use our program. It's a great view of what it actually looks like in practice from an actual teacher, not from a salesperson. Soft skills for distance learning are some things that you as a teacher might want to think about, from contextualizing and personalizing instruction to best practices in communicating with students, etc. And then our 300 level courses, utilizing reports to maximize learning outcomes, really is a deep dive into our reporting system that's built into the program. And so again, if you're just looking at our program for the first time, this is a great way to get pretty in-depth dive into how our reporting features work. And then we have another teacher who created this webinar called A Teacher's View of Data-Driven Distance Learning Instruction. And it's really how she uses the data from the system to drive instruction. And again, that would be appropriate whether you're doing a virtual online distance learning or whether you're just working with students in a new capacity, more one-on-one at different times and in a face-to-face class setting. So we encourage you to come to this site. Again, if you just go to essentialed.com/educators and then /distance-learning-series, or it's linked in that professional development tab on our site. You can access these anytime, anywhere, and get a good view and a different view of our programs and services. All right, so with that, let's talk a little bit about our program. I'm going to launch in here to our actual learning program. This is the learning management system that you would see as an educator when you log into the system. You'll see that we're on the GED Academy product right now. If you purchase our GED Academy, you have access to the Task and HiSet Academy as well. So buying one gets you all 3, basically. So if you're in a state where there's some choice for you, that's an option for students. Otherwise, I would just switch to the appropriate academy. If I was in a state that used HiSet, I would switch to that. It would generally default to whatever your test is that you use in your facility as well. If I wanted to look at our ABE academies, I would switch over to those products as well. And then in corrections, unless you're online, you wouldn't have access to the virtual tutor or our workplace readiness courses. Those are all only delivered in an online format at this time. But let's talk a little bit and look through some of the features of GED Academy. And then if you want to see more, of course, we can get that set up for you. And the things that I show you here will be generally true of all the products. There are a few nuances between different products. But for the most part, in this short overview, I'm going to show you things that span all of our products and services. So one of the things we try to do is make, the administration as easy as possible. So you'll see I'm on the administration tab here, and I'm logged in as a teacher, which means I can create classes, I can add students to the program, I can look at their essays that they've submitted, and as a teacher, I can send messages in the system. You can turn off that feature if you want to in corrections.
so that the messaging system isn't functional, and you can certainly in corrections make it so that students can't send messages back and forth. But adding a student is very simple. We don't collect a lot of sensitive data. We just need their first name and last name, an email or username. Most people in corrections use an inmate number or other identifier there, and some sort of a password for them in the system. The primary teacher in class can be set up if you're in a large facility with a lot of different teachers and classes. It's nice to be able to separate students into smaller groups like that. And then I would just check which courses I want the student to have access to. If you were buying, let's say, our GED Academy and our Table 11-12, I could give the student access by just checking that box. And then this active button is really important because what we sell is a reusable seat. So as long as that box is checked, that student has access to the program. What we're finding in corrections especially is as people are moving more and more to tablets, and even tablets that are fed by Wi-Fi, students have access to the program anytime, anywhere that they want to study. That means they need that seat whenever they want to study. And so our seats are sold by the individual. If that person leaves, graduates, gets released, you can deactivate their account by simply unchecking the button, and now you have a seat that you can reissue to another inmate. So that's how our program works. You just save it and close it, and that student now has a seat in the program. Now, if I want to know how the program functions or what the content looks like, I'm going to go to the content maps. If I want to see what resources are available for me as a teacher, I would go to resources. And if I want to go to run some reports, I would go to the reports tab. I think it's pretty simple and pretty intuitive the way we've set up the administration, or I mean the learning management system. One thing that I will mention is once you've put a student in the program and you want to go in, let's say, and make some changes or some customizations to the student, I'm going to click on edit, and now you'll see, let me go back to a different student real quick. Let's go Curtis here. So now you'll see that I have access to any of the programs that I've given Curtis access to. And so in GED Academy, I have the option of limiting which content areas he studies. So if this is a student I really want to narrow down maybe and have them just work on their math and reading right now, and then we'll come back to science and social studies later, I can uncheck those boxes, and that will focus them on just the content I want them to have access to. In TABE, one of the nice things is, or CASAS, this would be true in CASAS as well, is I can have them take an assessment to get started, or I can just enter their level. So if I know that this is a level E student or a level M student, I can just put that information directly in the system, and the system's going to create that learning plan for the student based on that NRS level. Makes it much easier to get them involved. They don't have to go through another assessment, and it allows you to quickly put them into a learning plan. Now, in GED Academy, or our high-set or task academies, one of the things that's important to note is that they are an adaptive learning engine. So in these, I want them to take that initial practice test. There are 4 practice tests per content area, and that's true of all the different assessments, and they are different. This isn't one test that we're applying to all those different tests, because we know those tests are different. So the GED practice test is aligned with GED assessment targets. High-set is aligned with high-set, task is aligned with task. If I look at the summary of test 1, I'll see all kinds of good items in here, types of items that they're going to find on the actual GED. This is an untimed test, so the student gets to go through and do their best work. And then based on their score, the system will create a learning plan for the student. Note in GED, this isn't true in high-setter tasks, but in GED, we have the test in both English or Spanish. So if you're a GED state, we have the tests in both languages. Once the system gets that initial test done, it creates a learning plan for each student, and now they work through that learning plan and are periodically given test 2, then test 3, then test 4 at appropriate intervals, and the system realigns their learning plan based on what they're showing mastery of. Notice that I can also come in and make assignments though. And with 4 practice tests, that's a lot of variance. So a student isn't going to just get to know the test. I can come in and assign these practice tests at any time that I want a student to take the test. I can just select which student I want, put a note in to have it done at a particular date, and assign it, and it'll show up in their learning plan. So how does the content work? Well, as I said, everything's aligned. So if I can come to the correlations tab, everything's aligned to the GED targets or the appropriate test targets. And so now I can scroll through and I can see each of the GED reading targets. I can see their sub-targets, what lessons are appropriate for that content. I can make assignments directly out of here. Remember that the adaptive learning engine is doing that already. But if I want to teach a specific thing to students, I can always come in and assign it to them with a note and have them work on it. We have a connection to our workbooks here so that you can see exactly which pages in our workbooks are appropriate for this content. And you can do this for any of the content areas. The system is 100% aligned to GED assessment targets. We've gone through their independent review. And so you'll see that we have a great alignment with lots of content for each of the objectives. Now, lessons, I think, are the real strength of our program. So if I click on evidence for inferences.
Hey, are you ready to start learning about evidence for inferences? Finding and evaluating evidence for inferences is an important skill. It's how you show whether the inference is valid. Does the text support it?
So a couple things about our lessons, and let me resize this just a little bit so we can see it. There we go. So a couple things about our lessons. First of all, we've gone through and worked very hard on ADA compliance. So we have closed captioning, we have transcripts, all kinds of tools if your students have disabilities. Secondly, every lesson is built around this model where we're first going to identify why it's important that you learn it, and then we're going to contextualize it for adult learners, and then we're going to check and make sure that you're getting it as we go. So let me start this lesson. You're going to meet one of our characters, Curtis, and we'll stop at a few points and talk about how the lesson is built around good learning principles.
When making an inference about something, it needs to be backed up with evidence. Pretty straightforward, right? Where in the text did you get that idea? The better you are at finding evidence, the better your reading and analysis skills will be. Evidence is a big deal because you're making a leap in logic when you're making an inference, whether it's a big inference or a small one. And you want to know whether you're right.
I'm going to pause it there for just a second. You know, this is one of those topics that people might not be real excited to learn about. But when you think about it, this is a really important topic. This is how we show ourselves, you know, in debates that we have with other people. I've listened to my teenage sons debate for hours over who was better, Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. And they were building evidence for their inference. And they were trying to show through the evidence that they were right. And so at the core of who we are as human beings is a desire to be good at this skill so that we can establish when we're right about something. And so now Curtis is going to take that and he's going to contextualize it into something that an adult can understand.
Like, one of the kids in my neighborhood had cancer when he was about 10. That was pretty tough on his folks. They were visiting my mom one day and they got into an argument. His dad thought they had to go to a different doctor now that his treatment was over. His mom thought that it was ridiculous. She didn't want to change doctors. Well, they got out the pamphlets they were reading and started looking at it. They were looking for evidence. Who was right? Did they need a different doctor? His dad had made an inference, and now he had to prove it.
So we know that, most people have had some connection to a situation like this, unfortunately. The healthcare system is difficult, and we know that there's a lot of things that happen in an adult's life with their families. This connects. It's not repackaged K-12 content. It's not something that they just read on a screen and it's kind of boring and then they go answer a bunch of problems, but it's putting it in a context that an adult learner can really connect to. From here, Curtis is going to go in and actually teach the lesson.
You might make an inference.
So he's going to talk about identifying evidence. He's going to talk about it being something that you think is true, but you haven't completely proven. Kind of like science. It's a way for us to try to find that evidence. He's going to use some different genres and go ahead and teach the student how to do it. And then in the exercise set, we're going to see if the student's with us or not.
Okay, now take a look at that pamphlet about kids who finished their cancer treatments. Which highlighted sentences are the best evidence for the inference that children need a new doctor after their treatment? Select the 2 best answers.
So I can click on the passage, and here's the pamphlet that the father was looking at. And so he's going to go through, and you can read this. You can see where we got it from. And we have the 4 sentences highlighted. Now, if I make a mistake, the system does something that Benjamin Bloom talked about in his Mastery Learning Principles, which is you need immediate corrective feedback. And so if I click A and I've made a mistake.
This sentence talks about challenges after your child finishes their cancer treatment, but it doesn't really relate to finding a different doctor. Try again.
So I don't just tell them it's wrong, but I tell them why it's wrong, and I help them see that it's not really about finding a different doctor. It's just talking about the challenges that your student has. So we try again. And if a student gets it right.
Great job. This sentence says you leave the security of the people on your child's healthcare team. That implies that you need to find a new doctor since you're leaving your old doctor.
Yeah, so now I'm quoting from the text. I'm establishing and reinforcing what the right answer is. So even if students are guessing, they're getting this next layer of instruction. And this is something that most educational programs leave out. But we've identified this as a key element to learning, and it really helps students move forward quickly in their understanding. All right, so just quickly, let me talk about a couple of the reports that we offer. One thing you can do also before I go there is you can see the full scope and sequence. So this is how the whole program is laid out. If I pull up math, reasoning, and GED, I'll be able to see exactly where it starts. The very first lessons, the unit is on whole numbers and operations. Students are going to start with adding whole numbers. That's our lowest level lesson in GED Academy. In TABE Academy, I think we start with skip counting, so it's even lower on the scale. But the scope and sequence lets you see each of the units, what lessons are in them, what the quizzes look like. For some of you who are able to teach in kind of a distance learning or via Zoom, I think it's great because you can take a lesson like this, launch it just like I did with the previous lesson, and project that into Zoom basically, and use that as the core of your teaching. Stop it, just like I was doing, talk about it, ask students to go do other things, come back to it. It's a great tool for being able to use these instead of having to go in and author a lot of new content. You can use the content from the program here to be kind of a foundation piece for the teaching you do. All right, let's look at reports real quick. So I'm going to show you just 2 reports on this list. I'm going to show you the skill mastery and the student overview. Skill mastery lets me come in and choose a student. Leonard's class, Curtis, and we'll look at math. And this report is going to run to show me each of the GED assessment targets and how he's doing in those targets. So now I can take them and I can drill into them. So Q2, he's not ready on. If I drill into Q2A here, I'm going to see this is a big standard: perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, division of rational numbers. I need to know, like, what parts of that does he understand and doesn't he understand? So now I can see clearly that he's doing okay on multiplying whole numbers. He's doing okay on adding and subtracting, but you know, fractions are a problem. Multiplying decimals are a problem. Multiplying and dividing rational numbers are a problem. So now I've got some real targets I can work with this student when I get time with them. And so our team has gone deeper than just the standards, but down to a sub-skill level to identify what students need. And you can get to it as a teacher in just a couple of clicks. So the skill mastery report is a really powerful tool for educators. The student overview lets me see what a student sees. And so now if I come into Leonard's class and Curtis, click see report. Curtis is not going to see this stuff at the top, obviously, that's from the report thing, but he sees everything from kind of this bluish tint down. And so he can go between content areas, he can switch between various content areas. He can see what's in his learning plan. So he just finished his quiz on charts and graphs, and so now he can go on to the next lesson. He'll see any assignments that I've given him with the notes, you know, complete this by Friday, and he'll just click on it where it's highlighted here. And in the review tab, it'll show him when he takes lessons or has things that he needs to address, it'll put those review lessons directly in this review tab for him. In the mastery box, he can see the work that he's done to this point. So he did well on whole numbers. He passed out of these units actually. He got 100% on measurement and a 90% on percents and a 90% on graphs and charts. So now he's ready to move on to his GED prep level. And that's what the progress widget is telling him as well, is that now he's leveling up to the GED level. It'll show his highest score on our practice test and an estimated study time to pass. Now this one's a little messed up because this is a dummy student and his scores are all kind of all over the place, but they estimate the study time to pass based on test scores. And so they'll get an estimated study time to pass, which is meant to motivate students. Additionally, the study time widget will keep track of their study time by date. You know, if this was a real student each week, they would be able to see how much time they're putting in. And we have free resources available to students, including our test calculator tutorial and other tools if you're in an online environment that you can access by clicking here. If you're in an offline, then those will not be available to you. We do have a complete study time tracker, so you can see exactly how much time students are putting into the work in the program. Go to class, let's just do all classes. It'll show you how much time both in class and out of class may or may not be appropriate for you in corrections, but I do know places where they are still having some class environments. And then when students have a tablet, they're back studying in their cells, it's tracking that time separately, and they're giving some incentives and rewards for students putting in the extra time on their own. Okay, so that's basically our program. There's dashboards and other tools. We can get you set up with demo seats so that you can see it. Under our resources tab, we have lots of tools for you there. Tutorials, getting started, which is an overview of just getting going in the program. Some vignette type training videos that will help you with some of the basic skills student or teachers need to use the program, some of the print materials that we offer, all kinds of tools under the resources tab for you as well. What we typically do is set up a demo account for you in our online version so you have an opportunity to look through it and play with it on your own. And if you'd like one of those, again, all you have to do is go to Dan or email dan@essentialed.com. And I'll get that email. Let me know where you're from and that you saw this on the CEA virtual conference, and we'll get you set to the right rep, and that rep can get in touch with you and get you set up with a demo account to go look at our programs. We hope that you enjoy this little 30-minute overview. There's a lot more I could show you about the program, a lot of things we could discuss, and we hope you'll reach out to us to get an in-depth view of those on your timeline when it'll work for you. Thank you so much. Thanks for all you're doing in adult education, your care and commitment for your students. We know what a tough job it is. This is all we do. We don't do any K-12 or high school or anything like that. All we do is adult education. And we have corrections users all over the country. So we really do recognize how much you put in and day out to helping your students come out and be ready to get jobs and to get credentials so that they don't end up back in jail or prison again. I just can't tell you how much we honor and appreciate your work. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.